Welcome. Today, I'd like to begin with a thought that sits at the heart of Sedna's story. Not everything forgotten was simply forgotten. Some parts of us disappeared because keeping them once felt more dangerous than losing them. Perhaps you recognize this. The sensitivity you learned to hide, the intuition you stopped trusting, the anger you swallowed, the ambition you made smaller, the voice you quietened, the parts of yourself you gradually learned were too much, too inconvenient, too difficult, too powerful, or simply too costly to keep visible. We don't always consciously decide to abandon these parts of ourselves. Sometimes we simply learn. We read the room. We recognize what belonging requires. We discover what receives love and what risks rejection. And little by little, something disappears beneath the surface. Not destroyed, not truly lost, exiled. And this is where Sedna waits. Sedna is an Inuit sea goddess whose story carries themes of betrayal, abandonment, and descent into the ocean. Her myth is not an easy one. She's cast into the depths through betrayal, and the sea that receives her eventually becomes her kingdom. Within Remembrance astrology, Sedna begins the Path of Exile, and she asks a different question from the mysteries who have come before her. Not simply, who am I beneath identity, but what part of me was cast out so that I could survive? And I think that's an important distinction. With Persephone, on the path of initiation, we discovered that nothing essential is ever truly lost. Sedna takes that truth somewhere more difficult. She asks, so if nothing essential is ever truly lost, then what happened to the parts of me that were forced beneath the surface before I had the power to protect them? Not everything buried chose to be buried, and not everything forgotten simply faded away. Sometimes forgetting was adaptation. Sometimes silence was protection. Sometimes making ourselves smaller was the wisest response available to us at the time. And Sedna doesn't ask us to judge the woman who did that. She asks us to understand her. This is why I think Sedna offers us the medicine of recovery. We often talk about reclaiming ourselves, but reclamation comes later. Before we can say, this belongs to me, we first have to discover this still exists, and that's recovery. Before we can reclaim what was exiled, we must first believe it survived. The tenderness survived. The knowing survived. The creativity survived. The anger survived. The voice survived. The impossible woman survived. I call her the impossible woman because every woman carries some version of her. Not impossible because there's something wrong with her. Impossible within the conditions that once required her to be less than herself. Perhaps she felt too deeply. Perhaps she knew things other people didn't want named. Perhaps her anger told the truth. Perhaps her ambition exceeded what was permitted. Perhaps her power made other people uncomfortable. And perhaps, somewhere along the way, she learned that belonging required her absence, the absence of a part of herself. Sedna asks us to swim beneath these stories, because beneath them, her gifts are still alive. The ocean is such a powerful symbol for this journey. In Sedna's myth, the sea isn't simply the place she's cast into, it becomes her kingdom. The place where betrayal becomes sovereignty, where abandonment becomes wisdom, where exile becomes medicine. And perhaps that's why the ocean has always spoken so powerfully to us. We look at its surface and cannot see everything living beneath it. But that doesn't mean there's nothing there. Invisibility is not absence. Depth holds hidden life. And so perhaps recovery begins very gently, not with courage, not with some grand declaration of empowerment, but with recognition. This part of me still exists. She survived. She still belongs to me. And then perhaps something else becomes possible. We begin creating the conditions in which she no longer needs to hide. And so I'd like to leave you today with a question. What part of you went into exile because it once cost too much to let her remain? Perhaps she's never stopped waiting. Not waiting to be rescued or for someone else to give her permission to exist. Simply to be recognised. Sedna teaches us that exile is never the end of the story. What could not once remain visible may still be alive beneath the surface, waiting for the day we can become the safe place it returns to. Thank you for listening. Until next time, may you continue walking your own path of soul remembrance.